Hello, everyone. I would like to start a new series, a real life story from a real expats in Mexico, sharing with us the travel, the life in Mexico, and sharing with us tips how to better to adjust to new life, or how actually to be happy in new country and a new culture. I would like to introduce to you Daniel Ellsworth, who really I'm happy agreed to devote his time and attention to our conversation today. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Emily.
Daniel, I was really happy to find you. And I believe you have several stories to share with people. First of all, from small details, what I learned about you. You are American who lived for years in Alaska, and at some point of time, you decided to land in Mexico. Please share how all started. Why Mexico? Your story.
Okay. I've been in Alaska quite a while. It's a very conservative state. And at the time I was involved with a woman, I had been for many years, and we had put her daughter into a bilingual program in an elementary school in Alaska, in Anchorage. And the bilingual program was in Spanish. Mm-hmm. So she was in this program for a year or two. And we both wanted a change of lifestyle. And I said, well, why don't we just move to Mexico, where her daughter could learn Spanish much better and we could participate in the lifestyle in Mexico. And at the time, I worked out of my house. I'm maybe what's called now a digital nomad, a software engineer. So I was developing software for a company, and at that time, I had a 3-year contract doing some very intense work for a company, and I could do it offline anywhere in the world. So we didn't really plan too much. We just loaded up the car one day and went. Well, take that back. When we first started talking about this, we thought we'll take a trip to Mexico for 6 or 7 weeks and see where we would like to live. When I was quite young, I guess 13, I lived in Mexico City, so I was somewhat familiar with Mexico. And I knew that we wanted to be in southern Mexico, and so we flew down to, we flew first to Mexico City, spent some time there, and then just took a bus and traveled around the country. So we went from Mexico City to Puebla, from Puebla to Oaxaca to San Cristobal de las Casas, and then we went over to the coast, and we went to briefly to Cancun. We went to Merida. We went to Veracruz, and then we ended up back in Mexico City. So we did that for about 7 weeks. And after seeing all of those places, we sort of decided we would like to go to Oaxaca. So I don't remember exactly, it must have been about 8 months later, because it was the beginning of the school year. And we just decided to go. So we loaded up the car and we drove down to Oaxaca. That was all there was to it.
Why Oaxaca? You selected Oaxaca? I know that it's very colorful state with distinctive culture. What you would say about Oaxaca?
Well, we chose Oaxaca because it was we were from Alaska, and at the time, it's a little smaller place. It was very close for us between Oaxaca and San Cristobal de las Casas, which is smaller yet. We liked Puebla very much. because it's very cosmopolitan and a lot of things are available. We actually like Mexico City for the same reason. But Oaxaca just felt small to us. And the reason we chose it over San Cristobal, because it was the end of the 20th century, and there was quite a bit of problems in San Cristobal at the time. And we just thought it would be better to go to Oaxaca.
So you mean Oaxaca City, yes?
I'm sorry? Oaxaca City,
Oaxaca
yes.
City, because I know Oaxaca is a big state.
It's a big state also.
Okay, so, and here you are in Mexico for 25 years, so correct me, please. How long you live in Mexico?
Yeah, well, so we drove down. We really did not plan. We just drove down. We just threw a bunch of stuff in the car and drove. We had a dog, I think, and a cat, and we had the kids, and we drove. So we got to Oaxaca and first looked for a place where I could get decent internet. At the time, that was pretty hard. So I found a internet provider and just offered to rent an office space from them at their place. And I worked out of that for a while. We found a nice house. We put our daughter in school. We looked around a little bit for a good school, and we got her a private school, which is quite cheap.
What about your Spanish, by the way? What about your Spanish? Did you have it before coming to Mexico?
Yes, I had Spanish before. It'd been many years, so I had to relearn it. But my Spanish was okay. Now, of course, I'm bilingual, but back then I still struggled a little bit with Spanish. And really didn't get good at it until I decided that it didn't matter what I sounded like. So when you're learning a new language, you can't get too caught up in the details of the grammar and everything else, because you'll never learn. You probably know this yourself. And so you just have to decide you're going to learn like you did when you were a kid, just listening and spewing whatever comes out of your mouth and not be afraid. And it took me about 2 or 3 years before I realized that that's the only way I would ever get very good at Spanish. So in the beginning, I'd think things through a little bit, and I'd think about what I wanted to say and how it would sound, and that doesn't work.
Yeah, and after then you get confidence, as I say, no matter what I'm saying, I'm saying.
Yeah, you have to decide that it's not important to you how you sound.
Yes.
And people don't care. I mean, in any country, if you're trying to learn a language, people are helpful. It's not a problem.
In Mexico as well, yes? You found it.
That's very easy. And people in Mexico are very patient, and they do whatever they can do to understand what you're trying to say. It was no problem, really. But I didn't get extremely fluent until I decided to just open my mouth and say whatever came to my head.
But I understand after some time you should have worked on your visa immigration process when you already accommodated.
So I checked on that before we left, and discovered in Mexico it was pretty easy to get what amounts to be a retirement visa. It's a 1-year visa, renewable every year. You just have to present them. I don't know now what it is, but I assume it's the same. You just have to present them with a letter from your local legal establishment, the state police, showing that you have no felony record.
Now it's a little bit different, but I will not kind of take.
Yeah, so you have to show you have no felony record, and you have to show that you have enough money to live without working in Mexico. Of course, I had more than enough money to do that, and it's not. I don't know what it is now. Maybe I really don't know what it is now. Back then,
we will not.
Back then it was 2,500
in your life.
a month.
Yes, and tell me, please, after how many years or what time you felt that Mexico is your home, is place, you can say Mexico is your country where you feel comfortable living?
Well, I never felt uncomfortable with it. Probably because I'd had some experience when I was younger. That's the reason we went to Mexico rather than some other Spanish-speaking country. It was convenient. It's just south of the border. It feels like the neighborhood. I mean, it doesn't feel too much different to me. But yes, it does take getting used to. There's different ways of doing things and different ways of people's interactions, and it's a different culture. It takes some time. I would guess it took me about, say, 1, 2, 4, I don't know, 5 years, perhaps, 4 or 5 years before it felt very much like home. And after this many years, I can't even imagine being anywhere else, or at least can't ever imagine going back to the United States.
Why?
No, there's no possibility. So it's very much home now. I don't feel the slightest tie to return.
So if I can
I guess it took probably about 5 years, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's an average normal, whatever say, when people are relocating from one culture to another culture with different language. It's a kind of average. But some people feel different. Even after years living in new countries, they still feel they're kind of not local. It's very personal feeling. And I'm happy for you. And I understand from your early stories that now you divide your life between states of Oaxaca and states of Chiapas. So why 2 states and how they're different for you?
Okay, well, as I've said, we moved to Oaxaca first. And I built a house there. I bought some land, built a house, was there. Actually, the girlfriend left after about a year, so I was on my own. From after the first year, I was on my own for quite a few years. What do I say? Oaxaca is a conflictive state. I lived outside of Oaxaca City in a small village. So I wasn't in Oaxaca City too much. In fact, I was outside so much that friends I still communicated with in various places, whether it was in Mexico or the United States, started calling me a hermit and said I needed to get a life. And so I went and started getting more involved in the community in Oaxaca City for a while. But Oaxaca's, about that time, I decided to start dating. So I joined up with Match.Mexico, thinking I would find somebody in Oaxaca City.
Website, you mean? You use website?
Well, I lived in a rural village, so it's not like, and at that point, let's see, how old am I now? I'm in my 50s, and I'm not going to bars, and I don't go to churches and stuff like that. And so, how do you meet people? So I got on Match, but surprisingly enough, not too many Mexican women were on Match in Oaxaca. They were all everywhere else in the country, but they weren't in Oaxaca. So I did this, I don't know, a couple of years, and met some very nice women around the country, and I would visit them and they would visit me, but none of them were in Oaxaca. And one of them was in Chiapas. And so I met her and we got along pretty well, and sort of dated for about a year. And I got to know where she lived in Chiapas, and we decided that it would be nice to get married, and we did that. And and eventually I moved to Chiapas.
Very
So,
nice story. And what you would find differences between states other than climate, which I understand is different culturally, other than, beautiful woman you found in Chiapas, but was not likely to find in Oaxaca. But speaking maybe about
well,
expat communities
I
or
was already tired of Oaxaca when I met. There's Oaxaca. There's quite a lot of conflict. Um, I'm not sure exactly what it is about the culture in Oaxaca that makes it something about it. It's a different place, difficult place to be. It's a beautiful place to visit. The people that come down as snowbirds love to come down for 3 or 4 or 5 months. So they'll come down in November and December, and they'll stay up through February or March, and it's perfect. The downtown area is beautiful for pedestrians, and they've got a lot of activities. It's a nice place. But if you live there full time, you have to deal with the politics and the conflicts that arise between communities and different groups that are striving for to express their own power and their own interests. And Oaxaca is very conflictive that way. And
okay.
and Oaxaca City is they've never really it's grown a tremendous amount, but they haven't grown the infrastructure, so the traffic is just terrible all the time. I got to the point where I didn't drive into Oaxaca. I just drove to a neighboring town, and then I would take the bus into town because I couldn't stand to drive anymore. So it's really bad. And Comitan at the time had no traffic, which is where Maria was from, and a lovely town. In fact, I kind of hate to talk about it too much. I don't want a bunch of people living here. It's a really wonderful little town. People are nice. It's a well-educated place, and Comitan is lovely. San Cristobal is another popular place for expats, and there's quite a large expat community in San Cristobal.
Yeah, I know.
As for expats in Comitan, I don't know. There might be 3 or 4 Americans. I don't know them. There's some people, a couple guys from Italy, and somebody from Hungary. There isn't any expat community here. So.
But I know, by the way, that in Oaxaca, expat community is kind of big and growing lately, at least. In Oaxaca.
The expat community is gigantic. I think it's 3,000 people. And there's the American expats started what they call the Oaxaca Lending Library quite a few years ago. Mm-hmm. When I was there, 25 years ago at least. They have their own building, and they have it has become a community center for expats. And so if you go to the Oaxaca Lending Library, there's always expats hanging out, talking, or being on the internet or playing games. They have a bridge group. And so, yeah, there's a very big expat community in Oaxaca.
Can I ask you, what is your lifestyle? Actually, I understand that you retired for some time, but how you're planning your day? What are you doing? You're really working, building home, or what activities filling your day?
Well, I do a lot of things. I like construction. I'm building another house in back of this house, and I bought here an old 150-year-old house, sort of mansion that was falling down, and I rebuilt it. And now I'm building another house in back, and we're going to turn the front into a hostel. So doing a lot of construction. Quite a few years ago, we started roasting coffee. So we buy and roast coffee, and we package it and put it in stores. Although since the pandemic, we don't put it in stores so much, people know us by word of mouth and by our previous presence in the stores. And so they come to our place and ring the doorbell and we deliver coffee to them.
Oh, I was tasting Chiapas coffee and I can tell that it was wonderful. I coffee lover and I found that taste, at least whatever the Mexican girl from Chiapas just presented me when I was in Playa last year. It was her gift to me from home, pack of the coffee, and it's wonderful. So you are growing the coffee or just?
No, we have relationships over the years. We've had relationships with different growers. One of our early grower was they lost their entire coffee, all their coffee trees to the fungus, the coffee fungus called La Roya. So we had to look around for other places, and we even bought a little coffee in Guatemala to tide us over sometimes. And since then, they've started up again about 2 years ago, and we're buying exclusively from them. We've known them for quite a few years now, their family, and so we go hang out with them, and we buy their entire crop every year. And so, yeah, that's where we get our coffee. And then we keep it, we buy it from them in what's called pergamino. The shell is still on the coffee. Mm-hmm. And so we store it that way. And before we roast it, we clean it. We have the machine to clean the shell off, and then we roast it and sell it that way. So we store it as what's called pergamino. We do the same thing with cacao. So we make chocolate as well. And that's been growing quite a bit. We have a pretty good sized chocolate business. So we have a relationship with a village. It's about 5 hours from here in a more remote region. And we have somebody we work with there, and they've learned and we've learned, and over the last few years, it's getting better all the time. And so he has his own cacao trees, and he buys some from the village, and he processes it the way we need it processed, and he brings it in, and then we do our processing to it and turn it into chocolate and sell chocolate. So
Daniel, I have a question. Sorry. I have a question, which I know many of people around me asking from different area of life. What you would say about crime in Mexico? Because many people are so concerned, many people outside of Mexico so concerned about this topic that every time when I'm mentioning Mexico, like, the eyes became bigger. From your experience of person living 25 years, living in a city, in a rural area, actually traveling for years, I am, really interested to hear your real life opinion and experience.
I've never felt afraid. I've been in some of the worst areas of Mexico City. I don't feel uncomfortable. And at this point, frankly, I'm more afraid to go to the United States than I am Mexico. I mean, they have very rigid gun control here.
Really?
It's one of the more rigid controlled gun. There's only one place in the entire country you can legally buy guns, and you have to have special licensing. You're required to only keep it in your home unless you're going to a rifle range, and there's a whole bunch of rules.
But what about Mexican mafia?
The Mexico mafia.
Yes, and
they're in their place, and we're in our place. I mean, unless you're involved with the Mexican mafia, there's nothing to think about. I mean, it's like, how can I explain this? It's like to say, well, I'm not going to go to the United States because there's a huge gun killing spree in Chicago. I mean,
I'm giving the same.
It's kind of, and so, there's a lot of killings between cartel members. So they fight their turf battles, but
outsiders are not involved. Like, there is always chance that people from the street might be, in crossfire
I suppose I've never seen it personally, but I suppose it's possible. But frankly, I think you're more likely to get into a crossfire in the United States because there are just more guns. Here, there's no guns. I don't know anybody that owns a gun. Nobody. I've never met anybody that owns a gun. I've never seen a gun except from a police or military. I mean, they just don't exist here except between the military, the police, and the cartels. And the cartels fight between themselves. I mean, they're just there's not gun holdups. There's not individual shootings. The nice thing about it is that you can go up and talk to the police. If a police car comes to the front of my house, I can go over and start chatting with them, and they don't have an attitude. Start talking. Oh, how are your kids? How are you doing here? Do you have family? Blah blah blah. You just talk like normal people. In the United States, you can't do that. I can't go up to a policeman and talk in the United States, and they're going to be paranoid. And here, because there's not guns all over the place, the police are normal people.
I live in Canada, so I have my very limited experience with policemen in Canada, but I understand the difference, and thank you for pointing it out. So I believe people who would listen to us, will make their notes as well. So
we leave our door open.
Really, you're not closing it
in the morning. Right now, I have guys working, and they come at different times for around 6:30 to 7. Well, I just go and open the door for the first guy, and I just leave it open. We're on the main street, right on the main part of town, and I just leave the door open.
Because it's small town, but no petty crimes, not
No, I don't know. No, not much. I mean, it's just not an issue. So I leave the door open. The guys come in. The last guy that comes in, he shuts the door. I mean, it's just not a problem.
Wonderful what you're showing with me. So what do you would advise people from US and Canada who might be considering moving to Mexico? How to select the better place for them to live in the country, in your opinion?
Well, I think, first of all, you should come down planning to rent. I don't think you should come down planning to buy something. Mexico, land and property purchase is complicated. You have to understand. I'll tell you, before you come down to Mexico, read a book on the history of Mexico.
It's what I did, and I do constantly.
I think before you do anything else, just read about the history of Mexico. Mm-hmm. And think about the history of the United States, or think about the history of Canada, and realize how your culture became where it is today based upon the history of where it came from. And if you read about Mexico, then you will understand better about how the culture is today because of the history that created that culture. So one of the things about Mexico property ownership is there was a revolution back in 1910 where Mexican landowners lost their property to the serfs that were working their property, right? And so there were a lot of rules developed around communal ownership and ejido ownership. These are types of property ownerships that are village controlled. And so where a property becomes owned by a village and where it becomes owned privately, where you can own title, and where the division line is between that and cities and city ownership is all pretty complicated. And it's made more complicated because certain areas foreigners are not allowed to buy unless they become Mexican citizens. And so don't buy property when you come down to Mexico until you really know what the rules are and you understand what you want.
But they're different in different states, as far as I know. I know rules of property purchase in Riviera Maya, in other states. I kind of not specialist, but I know from personal experience and from other people. And I understand that rules might be different between states. Yes, property.
Not that I know of. There's more ejido and communal land in the southern states than the northern states. So if you run across communal property of some kind, of course, but there's even communal property in Quintana Roo and Yucatan also. There are community property there. In fact, we own some. I don't think there's a lot of differences between states. It might appear there is because some states have more restrictions because they have more coastline or they have more area close to an international border. Because property that's within, I forget, 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers of an international border of the coastline can't be owned by foreigners.
No, it can be done through the fideicomiss, a bank trust, but yes, it's a different procedure. What you would say in general, if you can, shortly about Mexican people as a people? And I understand there are many different people living on the Mexico territory, but like your general opinion, like welcoming, from this perspective.
Right. Okay. Well, the really standout overall feature of Mexican culture that isn't so much in the United States anyway, is that it's important first to establish respectful contact. I learned this fairly early on. Americans kind of go to the grain, right? They go in, they want to buy something and they just go in and they say, well, I want to buy this and blah, blah. And if you go into a Mexican tienda and you say, I want to buy this, they're going to think you're really a terrible oaf that that you didn't even say, hi, how was your day? Did you get up well this morning? How's your family? I mean, you have to establish a personal rapport before anything else. And that applies to everything. You go into a restaurant, you go into a hotel, you go into a department store, you go to buy something. Before anything else, you say, buenos dias, or buenas tardes, or ¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo amaneció? Whatever. You establish a personal contact before you do anything else. If you don't do that, you're terribly uneducated oaf, and you won't get any respect at all. So Mexican people first are polite and respectful. That's number one on their list of everything.
I know.
You want to establish personal rapport, and you want to establish respect between you before you start talking about anything. And that's across the board. That's anything. You get stopped by the police, the first thing he's going to do is not going to say, show me your license. He's going to say, buenos dias, ¿cómo estás? Blah, blah, blah. No, they're not. It's an amazing thing, really, that this whole culture believes so much in polite respect and education, educated behavior between people. So more than anything else, that stands out. And if you do that, you go a very long way to get along well down here, no problems whatsoever. You have to show respect for everything. And even if they do things the strangest way that you can imagine, you have to show respect for it. That when you come to Mexico, you have to show respect for the country, for the way they do things, for the way they think about things and so on. You can't come in and say, well, we would do that differently and it would be much better. That will get you nowhere. You have to come down embracing their culture, or it will always be hard for you.
Very, very valuable information you're sharing. Actually, I would agree. It's my opinion as well, and I'm really like you pointed it out. What else you would advise newcomers or people who considering how they should be prepared mentally, or maybe some fact checking? It's obviously, but what else you would say?
Well, it's going to be different. You have to be open to everything. You have to be open to new experiences. You can't come down and expect to transport your ideas of the way things should be done and come down here and create a judgment about the way things are done here. You can't do anything the way you're accustomed to doing them before. You have to learn about new ways of doing things and accept those ways. I don't know how much of another way to say this.
You told
You have to come down open and accepting. You can't. And what else can I say? You have to not be thinking that everybody is out to take advantage of, because just because you don't understand something and the way that something is done doesn't mean that somebody is trying to take advantage of you. It simply means that you don't understand something. It's not because of anything nefarious. It's because you don't understand.
So you need to take your time living and to understand the culture before you make any conclusion. Yeah.
Yeah. People are friendly and welcoming. Something you might think of as somebody is trying to take advantage of you, they're typically not. It just doesn't happen.
Well, things happen, but they happen in every society and in every country.
And I find that's true of every country I've ever been in. You have to approach people with an open attitude and accept that the way that they're showing you or helping you or interacting with you, because really you have no choice anyway. And if you try to be too tense about it or be distrustful or afraid, all it's going to do is make your life more stressful and you won't be able to get ahead. You have to be open-armed about it. People are pretty friendly, and they're no more different friendly-wise than your own culture wherever you're coming from. It's the same here. There isn't any difference. The only problem is that because you don't understand it, you're afraid of it, or you're nervous about it, or you think somebody wants something from you or take advantage of it, and you hear all these stories. You have to forget all that. If you're sort of running around being worried all the time, it's going to be too difficult for you, and you really have nothing to worry about. Somebody might do some petty little thing, but it's so minor in the overall scheme of things, it just doesn't matter. You're not. It's no different than some foreigner coming into your community there in the United States or Canada or wherever you are. They don't have to really worry from your perspective because everybody is going to be friendly with them and be helpful. But from their perspective, they don't understand the culture, and so they're all worried. Well, it's the same here. It's not any different. You just have to approach things with an open mind and heart.
Thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate whatever you're sharing with me, with people. And I feel that you're pretty content, I would say even happy with your life in Mexico. And I wish you the best possible years, happiness, and with your family, with people around you, with community. As far as I understand, you are not looking to be part of expat community. You found your place and you are content with what you have, correct?
Oh, yes. There's there's no expat. Here where I live, there's no expats. So that's pretty easy. I can't be involved in an expat community here. I never really did too much, even in Oaxaca. It's pretty easy to live here. People are nice and respectful. If anything, you have to remember they may be shy with you because they think they can't communicate with you. They want to, but they're as afraid to communicate with you as you are with them because
Because of language?
because you're different. You're different, and they want to, but and they had some English, and maybe your Spanish is bad, and they had some English, but they're afraid to use their English. They're afraid to use their English with you because they think their English is so bad, and so the problem is on both sides. You're nervous and a little nervous about somebody else, and they feel the same way. They're not being standoffish. They just simply don't. They're nervous about communicating with you because they think you won't be able to communicate.
No, but people pretty open to communication. It's what I noticed versus, in our up north countries. It depends, but people are ready and open to communicate, to learn, to share like their opinions, ideas in very polite way. I would agree that.
Yes, of course.
So
no, they want to know about you. Well, of course, with me, I speak Spanish, and so it's very easy. So people come up to me and they love to talk with me. We'll talk for hours with a stranger, because they want to know all about what it's like to come here and where I come from, and do I go back, and what's life like there, and blah, 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 blah. People love to talk. I probably talk with more people than my wife does, and she's native. So
because you are different, because you look different and you attract kind of attention of this kind. You mentioned that people are educated. Yeah. So what?
Well, here, this particular town, most every professional in Mexico has taken English. It's required. So you can take it in advance that anybody that you're talking to that has a college education speaks English. They won't because they're too shy to, and they think it's bad. But you can take it that they do or have learned English. Here, particularly, Comitán, the entire area of Comitán were old haciendas. So there's a lot of agricultural land here. And Comitán was the support town for the hacienda owners. And so they built big mansions here, and they lived here, and they got their supplies here. And they sent their kids off to school in Europe and the United States and Canada. And it's sort of a traditional upper middle class town.
So it's not a poor state.
No, of course there is, but the percentage of well-educated people is, I think, much higher here than in most other Mexican towns because of the way it was built and the foundation and how it operated here. So the Comitecos consider themselves very well-educated and very artistic, and there's a lot. The writers, some of the most famous writers in Mexico came from here.
Oh, really?
William, early woman feminist, came from here, became an ambassador to Israel, wrote some books. They have quite a good history here. That's an educated town.
Okay. I will visit. I took my notes. I didn't visit yet Chiapas. I've been in many states, other states of Mexico, but Chiapas was on my list. And now, I have burning desire to visit San Cristobal de las Casas, Tuxtla, and your city as well. Thank you for sharing your stories. And I hope to meet you one day in real life in Mexico.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome here. We have a room. Come down and visit.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm really grateful to you. Thank you.
Okay.
There are many reasons people choose to make the move to the destination of their dreams. Remote workers can work from anywhere with an internet connection. Today, virtually every part of the world is online. Once just the lifestyle of digital nomads, the pandemic has led millions of people to work remotely. Many are choosing to move to a foreign location. Retirees, too, discover how their nest egg can go farther when living in a location that offers a better quality of life while reducing expenses. At International Lifestyle Consultants, we have scoured the world to uncover the best foreign destinations to call home. Perhaps you dream of a pastoral life in the quaint European countrysides of Italy or Portugal. On the shores of the Black Sea, you can find luxury accommodations at a fraction of what you would pay in the United States and Canada. Enjoy a leisurely lifestyle of Caribbean or Pacific trade winds found in the beachside communities of Mexico, Central and South America. Choose from the many charming colonial towns located in the same region. Discover areas with quality access to dental and health care that have attracted many foreign travelers on a budget. We make choosing to live in your dream destination a reality. We have curated migratory, cultural, and investment opportunities that you will not find elsewhere. We know firsthand how to help you create your step-by-step relocation plan. You'll begin your journey by filling out our Know Yourself questionnaire. We can also arrange discovery tours so you can experience the culture up close and personal prior to making your move. You don't have to dream of living in an exotic location. Contact us today and make that dream a reality.